G7 leaders united in supporting immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Cyril Ramaphosa re-elected South Africa president. Assalamualaikum, salam Malaysia Berdani. I'm Otto Othman and this is World Today. G7 leaders said the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency must be allowed to work unhindered in war-torn Gaza. They called for all parties to facilitate rapid and unimpeded passage of humanitarian relief for civilians in need in Gaza, particularly women and children. In a statement at the end of their talks in Italy, the group of 7 nations agreed it is critical that UNRWA and other UN organizations and agencies' distribution networks be fully able to deliver aid to those who need it the most, fulfilling their mandate effectively. They said securing full, rapid, safe and unhindered humanitarian access in all its forms, consistent with the international humanitarian law and through all relevant land crossing points, including the Rafah crossing, through maritime delivery routes and throughout all of Gaza, remains an absolute priority. The G7 leaders also repeated concern at the unacceptable number of civilian casualties in the Israel-Hamas war, now into its 9th month. They again endorsed a truce and hostage release deal. Israel's offensive in Gaza has killed more than 37,000 people, mostly civilians, including women and children. In a related development, the U.S.-built pier being used to deliver aid to Gaza will be temporarily moved to an Israeli port to protect it from anticipated high seas. The pier was only retracted to the Gaza shore a week ago after suffering storm damage in May that required repairs at Ashdod, where it will return to avoid the latest bad weather. The U.S. Central Command said the safety of its service members is a top priority, and temporarily relocating the pier will prevent structural damage caused by the heightened sea state. Aid deliveries via the pier, which have totaled over 3,500 metric tons so far, will resume after the sea has calmed. High seas disrupted aid deliveries for 2 days starting last weekend, but the pier did not have to be detached from the coast in that case, and they resumed on Tuesday. In a more serious challenge to efforts to deliver aid by sea, the UN World Food Programme has suspended the distribution of assistance that arrives via the pier to assess the security situation. The move came after Israel conducted a military operation nearby that freed 4 hostages but killed at least 274 Palestinians. President Vladimir Putin said Russia would end the war in Ukraine only if Kyiv agreed to drop its NATO ambitions and hand over the entirety of 4 provinces claimed by Moscow. Putin set out maximalist conditions at odds with the terms demanded by Ukraine, apparently reflecting Moscow's growing confidence that its forces have the upper hand in the war. He restated his demand for Ukraine's demilitarization, unchanged from the day he sent in his troops in February 2022, and said an end to Western sanctions must also be part of a peace deal. He noted that Ukrainian troops must be completely withdrawn from the Donetsk People's Republic, the Lugansk People's Republic, Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions. Russia claimed to have annexed the 4 regions in 2022, despite not having full control over any of them.
Как только в Киеве заявят о том, что готовы к такому решению и начнут реальный вывод войск из этих регионов, а также официально уведомят об отказе от планов вступления в НАТО, с нашей стороны незамедлительно, буквально в ту же минуту, последует приказ прекратить огонь и начать переговоры.
In response to the ceasefire offer from the Russian president, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Putin's commands and demands amounted to an ultimatum which cannot be trusted. Zelensky said he believed that Putin would not stop his military offensive even if his ceasefire demands were met.
Не можна вірити в такі меседжі. Путін іде тим самим шляхом. Він сьогодні говорить вже про 4 регіони. До цього це був Крим і Донбас. Хочу вам нагадати, в 2014 році, коли все почалась окупація Росії, був Крим і був Донбас. Сьогодні він говорить вже про 4 регіони, називає українські землі російськими територіями.
25-й воздушный, десантная, 144-й, пехотная бригада и 109-й бригада.
In another development, ambassadors from the EU's 27 member states have agreed in principle on beginning negotiations with Ukraine and Moldova on 25th June. EU ministers are due to formally approve the decision during a meeting on 21st June. The Belgian presidency of the EU's Council said it will call the first intergovernmental conferences on 25th June. Ukraine and fellow ex-Soviet neighbor Moldova applied to join the EU shortly after Russia launched its all-out invasion in February 2022. A raft of EU countries have been pressing the bloc to formally start the talks on 25th June, after leaders took the landmark decision to open negotiations in December. But opposition from Hungary, the friendliest country in Russia in the EU, threatens to derail the move, which requires the unanimous support of member states. Hungary takes over the rotating presidency of the Legislative Council of the European Union in July, and there are fears it could stall progress. Further opposition could come from a new right-wing government in the Netherlands. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa was re-elected for a second term after his humbled African National Congress, ANC, cobbled together an unprecedented coalition government. Lawmakers in Cape Town voted overwhelmingly to put Ramaphosa back in office for another 5 years after the 29th May general election that produced no outright winner. Ramaphosa was re-elected by fellow members of parliament with 283 votes in a secret ballot. He will be sworn in next week in Pretoria and then unveil his new cabinet. Last month's election marked a historic turning point for South Africa, ending 3 decades of dominance by the African National Congress of the late Nelson Mandela. The party that led the anti-apartheid struggle won only 40% of the vote and, for the first time, lost its absolute majority in parliament. It has now struck a deal to form what it calls a government of national unity. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula said the broad coalition brings together a majority of 18 parties that won representation in the 400-seat National Assembly. These include the center-right Democratic Alliance, the Zulu Nationalist Inkatha Freedom Party, and other smaller groups. Still ahead, Bolivia deploys army at gas stations to stop fuel smuggling. U.S. air regulators are investigating whether there are safety risks after titanium with counterfeit authentication wound up on commercial jets. Jets delivered to airlines by both Airbus and Boeing contain the titanium, which appears to be originally sourced from a Chinese company where an employee forged details on its certificates. The issue comes amid heightened scrutiny of the aerospace industry following recent manufacturing and safety issues at Boeing. Industry officials said that based on testing of the titanium, they do not believe the issue poses an immediate safety risk on planes in service. A Federal Aviation Administration spokesman said Boeing reported a voluntary disclosure to the FAA regarding procurement of material through a distribution who may have falsified or provided incorrect records. The FAA is investigating the scope and impact of the issue through its continued operational safety process. Spirit Aerosystems, which builds fuselages and other significant parts for both Airbus and Boeing, believes the issue stems from a single batch of titanium that entered the supply chain through approved suppliers. Extensive testing by Spirit has shown that the titanium is the proper grade for use on planes, but the issue is documentation. Bolivia's government is sending its military to gas stations. This is in a bid to curb the smuggling of subsidized fuel that's causing gasoline and diesel shortages across the country. Now, soldiers will make sure that only vehicles registered in a digital system are allowed to fill up their tanks. The army began their service at petrol stations in El Alto and Cochabamba since Wednesday.
La venta de diésel, hay ratos encontramos, hay ratos no se encuentra también, más estamos que tienen que dormir una noche antes, hay otros que duermen, cuestión suerte es lo que agarramos hay ratos. Esta vez agarré, mira, de 3 horas haciendo la fila, muy largo la fila, aquí hay controles también, control militar, yo creo que por el contrabando de diésel, ¿qué sería, no? Pero no, ahora está algo regularizando también, gracias a Dios, hoy día he agarrado rápido, temprano también el diésel.
Bolivia has been struggling with falling oil production and a chronic lack of foreign currency that make it increasingly difficult for the government of leftist President Luis Arce to import the fuel that's sold domestically at below-cost prices. Falling oil production has forced the country to import 56% of the gasoline and 85% of the diesel it consumes. The U.S. Supreme Court declared unlawful a federal ban on bump stock devices that enable semi-automatic weapons to fire rapidly like machine guns, rejecting yet another firearms restriction, this time one enacted under Republican former President Donald Trump. The justices in a 6-3 ruling authored by conservative Justice Clarence Thomas upheld a lower court's decision siding with Michael Cargill, a gun shop owner and gun rights advocate from Austin, Texas, who challenged the ban by claiming that a U.S. agency improperly interpreted a federal law banning machine guns as extending to bump stocks. The conservative justices were in the majority, with the liberal justices dissenting. The rule was imposed in 2019 by Trump's administration after the devices were used during a 2017 mass shooting that killed 58 people at a Las Vegas country music festival. Bump stocks use a semi-automatic's recoil to allow it to slide back and forth while bumping the shooter's trigger finger, resulting in rapid fire. Federal officials had said the rule was needed to protect public safety in a nation facing persistent firearms violence. Well, millions of pilgrims arrived in Arafat near Mecca on Friday to mark the most important day of the Hajj pilgrimage, Arafat Day. Although the pilgrims need to endure the heat, staying in cramped tents, going through all long and heavy traffic to reach Arafat, they describe the feelings as something that can't be explained.
وسط مخيمات وسط عرفات وإن شاء الله يكون ربنا يتقبل منا والوقف في عرفات بإذن الله وشعور مع شعارة في صفولك لأن اللي أنا حاسه جوايا هو حاجة بينه وبين ربنا فمهما قلت مش هعرف أوصف لك الجمال وحلاوة الشعور اللي جوايا.
صراحة شعور أكثر من رائع. هذا بالنسبة لنا كان حلو أن الحمد لله نزور مكة وبعدها عرفات أول حج لي هذا العام. واتمنى ان شاء الله ان الامور تمر بسلام وان شاء الله ما تكونش اخر مره ان شاء الله نجيو مرات اخرى عديده ان شاء الله.
Pilgrims will stay at Arafat until the sunset of Saturday before moving to Muzdalifa Plain, where they will gather pebbles to throw at stone columns symbolizing the devil. Millions of Muslims make the annual pilgrimage to Mecca to perform religious rites as taught by the Prophet Muhammad to his fellows 14 centuries ago. Hajj, a once-in-a-lifetime duty for every able-bodied Muslim who can afford it, is considered the world's biggest religious gathering. A 91-year-old woman became the first death from an early heat wave gripping Cyprus as the island sweltered under record June temperatures of 45 degrees Celsius. Health officials said another 5 elderly patients were being treated in hospitals with severe symptoms of heat stroke. They also said hospitals have been dealing with cases of heat exhaustion for several days. Yesterday, Cyprus issued its first red alert of the summer for extreme heat, with the meteorological department confirming that maximum temperatures reached 45 degrees Celsius. It was the hottest June day ever recorded on the Mediterranean holiday island. It was meant to be paradise on earth, a luxury apartment building standing just a few meters away from the beach with breathtaking views of the Pacific Ocean. However, intense rains that have lashed Chile in recent days caused a giant sinkhole to open underneath this high-end property in the resort city of Vina del Mar, prompting the evacuation of hundreds of residents. The 13-floor building with 200 apartments worth up to $500,000 each is now sitting atop a hole that is 15 meters long and 30 meters deep, the third sinkhole that opened here in less than a year. Experts say the sinkholes are caused by overflowing rainwater collectors. Catherine, Princess of Wales, makes a tentative return to public life for the first time since being diagnosed with cancer, as she is expected to attend the Trooping of Colour military parade in central London. Kate, as she is widely known, has not been seen at public engagement since a Christmas Day service in December last year, and revealed in March that she was receiving chemotherapy. With the 42-year-old princess, one of the world's most photographed women, her protracted absence has fueled speculation about her health and whereabouts. In a social media post, she said she was making good progress with her treatment, which she added is set to last for several more months. Next up in sports, ruthless Germany humbled 10-man Scotland in Euro 2024 opener. Germany thrashed 10-man Scotland 5-1 as the Euro 2024 hosts kicked off the tournament in style in Munich. The start of a journey they hope culminates in a record 4th continental title. Florian Wirtz struck the opening goal 10 minutes in, and Jamal Musiala soon doubled Germany's lead with an emphatic finish. A long-awaited night for Scotland went from bad to worse before half-time when Ryan Portiers was sent off for a two-footed challenge on Ilkay Gundogan, with Kai Havertz tucking away the resulting penalty. Niklas Füllkrug powered in a fourth midway through the second half after coming on as a substitute, and not even a late own goal from Antonio Rudiger could spoil an otherwise perfect start to the campaign for Germany. There was even time for Emre Can to add a 5th goal with a final kick of the game. Germany next play Hungary in Group A, while Scotland must regroup to take on Switzerland. Germany coach Julian Nagelsmann said he was very satisfied following a 5-1 win over Scotland. Saying that it might be only a first step, Nagelsmann added that it was a very good and very important one that the team could build on.
Ja, am Ende ist für uns wichtig, einen ersten Schritt gemacht zu haben als Fundament, auf dem wir aufbauen können. Das versuchen wir Mittwoch. Bin auch da guter Dinge, dass wir das Spiel gewinnen können in Stuttgart. Das bereiten wir uns gut vor. Morgen ist so ein bisschen, ja, auf der einen Seite Wettkampfersatz, aber auf der anderen Seite auch ein Tag, wo ich die Spieler in Ruhe lasse, was Ansprachen und so weiter angeht. Und am Sonntag bereiten wir uns wieder vor und dann versuchen wir ein ähnlich gutes Spiel zu machen, wie wir es heute gemacht haben.
Meanwhile, almost 2 decades after making his major tournament bow for Croatia at the 2006 World Cup, playmaker Luka Modric is back in Germany to get his side's Euro 2024 campaign underway against Spain as he seeks to secure a first international trophy. Flanked by coach Zlatko Dalic, The 38-year-old midfielder, who lifted his sixth Champions League title with Real Madrid earlier this month, is playing in his ninth major international tournament.
Grupa je dosta teška, kao što znamo, možda i kao što je sam rekao, i najteža na ovom natjecanju, ali mi smo tu da bi napravili veliki rezultat. Ponavljam, zadnjih godina smo prikazali stvarno nogomet na jednoj visokoj razini i u rangu najboljih reprezentacija na svijetu i ja vjerujem da to možemo ponoviti na ovom Euru. Tu smo da napravimo veliki rezultat i nadam se da ćemo u tome uspjeti.
Croatia have been handed a tricky draw with a game against reigning champions Italy in Leipzig, rounding out their group campaign on 24th June after a match with Albania in Hamburg next Wednesday. Fans flocked to see Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal as they held an opening training session in northwest Germany. Ronaldo, who was hugged by a pitch invader, received cheers every time he touched the ball in the workout, which lasted around 90 minutes. Supporters young and old, many of them wearing replica shirts, began queuing at least 3 hours before the event started. Roberto Martinez's side has a blend of youth and experience. At 39, Ronaldo is youthful alongside 41-year-old defender Pepe and are among the favorites for the tournament. They are in a group with Turkey, Georgia and Czech Republic. Now in tennis, former world number 6 and two-time former champion Matteo Berrettini beat Australian James Duckworth in straight sets to advance to the Stuttgart Open semi-finals. Berrettini claimed a 6-4, 7-5 win to advance to a first grass court semi since his 2022 Queen's Club victory. Berrettini cracked 13 aces and dropped just 10 points on serve. He won 33 of 37 first serve points and never faced a break point, while capitalizing on 2 of 8 break opportunities to close out Duckworth in 87 minutes. Berrettini will next meet fellow Italian Lorenzo Musetti after the 5th seed progressed at the expense of Kazakhstan's Alexander Bublik, who retired from their encounter trailing 4-6, 6-1, 1-love. Elsewhere, top seed Alex de Minaur advanced to the Rosmalen Grass Court Championship semi-finals following a straight sets win over Canadian former world number 3 Milos Raonic. The Australian claimed a 7-5, 6-2 victory and will next face either third-seeded Frenchman Hugo Huber or Dutch qualifier Gijs Brouwer after rain suspended their last 8 clash until Saturday. From the Hong Kong Dragon Boat races to a new airline for dogs. Take a look at amazing offbeat stories this week. That and more up next in our offbeat segment. Sounds of ferocious drumming and cheering crowds filled the air as dragon boats made waves in Hong Kong while the city celebrated the annual Dragon Boat Festival. Hundreds of paddlers made a splash on the waters of Aberdeen Harbour, where a total of 29 races, marking the largest scale event of its kind in the city, took place.
There's not a lot of I would say jealousy or competition. It's very friendly, the whole thing, but you still have to have that level of competitiveness to really be in the boat and spiritually gelled with the team.
Simultaneously, competitions unfolded in various districts across Hong Kong.
I feel like it would just be nice for the government to promote these nice local festivals a bit more, or maybe provide some more guidance to tourists on where to go, how many people to expect, what are the amenities, or how to get there, stuff like that. That would be nice.
While dragon boat racing originated in China's southern Lingnan region over 1,000 years ago, the modern version found its roots in Hong Kong, a special administrative region of China, approximately 40 years ago. The festival's origins trace back to the tragic suicide of the beloved Chinese poet and aristocrat Qu Yuan, who chose to end his life by drowning himself in a river. In a bid to prevent fishes from consuming his body, locals threw steamed rice dumplings into the river and paddled vigorously downstream. This tradition evolved into the annual customs of eating steamed rice dumplings and engaging in dragon boat racing. A chef from Buenos Aires won the World Pizza and Empanada tournaments hosted in Argentina, stepping at the top of a podium shared with a Cuban and Venezuelan pizza makers. Daniel Gabrieli, who runs a restaurant in the Buenos Aires province, said he felt like a dream after winning the tournament, where 174 contestants from all over the world, including Italy, Senegal, and Chile, convened.
La verdad es que haber ganado para mí fue un sueño, es algo que si bien todos los competidores, somos creo que 176 competidores, tienen la esperanza de ganar, es algo que no me imaginaba, o sea, creí que era un sueño.
Cuban pizza maker Miguel Sanchez earned second place and Venezuelan Diego Borges the third position.
Todo el mundo sabe hacer pizza, pero no todo el mundo sabe hacer pizza de buena calidad. La pizza es la comida más sociable que hay a nivel mundial, porque se comparte con todos. Si luego encima hacemos un plato espectacular, puede ser un plato de alta cocina.
Gabrieli will now compete in the Pizza World Championship, which will be hosted in Italy in 2025. A new airline offering a dog-first experience will be expanding its air network. Bark Air said it will now offer domestic and international service to 5 new destinations: Paris, France, Illinois, California, Arizona, and Florida. It will also offer 7 new routes. This is in addition to its current destinations of New York, Los Angeles, and London.
Well, what you should know first is it's a first-class experience for the dog, a business-class experience for people. We cater everything to the dog, trying to lower their anxiety and their stress so they have the most comfortable, fear-free experience on an airplane. So the security is not the TSA, but very simple for a dog. Come through, drive up to the airport, give us your bag, we get you on board right away. And it can be within 15 minutes of your arrival here at the airport, in the air off to Los Angeles or London from here in New York.
And once the dog's on board, they can drink champagne and even get a spa experience.
The future, I hope, is that for 65 million households and hundreds of millions of people in the US, these dogs are our children. They're part of our family. And so I hope that we can create an experience that reaches every family that wants to travel with their entire family like they do with their children.
Flights from the new routes are available for booking at dogflyfirst.com and will lift off this October. Well, that wraps up World Today. In our top story, G7 leaders united in supporting immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Otto Othman. Thanks for watching.